Okay, it is 11:40 and we start right on time. And unfortunately, my camera, since we're talking about cameras, will not go on. So the show continues. I am Diane Michael with Beyond the Boardroom and Callan Group Communications and our partner, Lindsay Lombardi. She had to run to some other meetings, so I'll be taking it from here. If it's your first time with us, welcome, welcome, welcome. We're happy to have you. And if you're returning from today or from other webinar Wednesdays, thank you for coming back. We sincerely appreciate your time. Our goal at Beyond the Boardroom is to educate board members and CAMs in an easy way at your desk while you're traveling on your phone. I always like to say, Warren Buffett says, the more you learn, the more you earn. And that is what we live by personally and professionally. And that is one of the reasons that we started Beyond the Boardroom almost 2 years ago. We know how important education and CE credits are, and that's exactly why we launched this program. We started on the fourth Wednesday of each month and have already grown to now offer education credits on the second and fourth Wednesdays. So please mark your calendars for our next webinar Wednesday happening on June 24th. This morning we had one CE for HOAEH2. We had one CE for IFM, and we are about to have one CE for ELE. I'll add, we don't have any more after, so I won't be adding the agenda to the chat, but I do want to show Mr. Genovese how many people are here and where you're coming from. So if everybody would just go into the chat, I would appreciate it. Let Billy see where you're coming in from, and everybody else can see where their fellow CAMs and board members are coming in from. Board members are here today for educational purposes only. They do not receive credit, as we state very clearly on our newsletters and our Zoom notifications. These credited hours are for CAMs. Anytime there is a board member and CAM class where credit is being given, that is not the way that the DBPR requires it. Board members have to be in a separate class than CAMs to get credit. We have a few educators that provide credit for board members, and we will make that very clear to all when we offer that. We send those reminders about the education that we're offering every week. So if you're not getting one of our newsletters every week, then please check your spam or your junk folders. And when you see our newsletter, please add that email address to your safe sender, hit not spam, and add us to your address book so that you don't miss any important information that we send out every week on free education. And feel free to send it to your board members and fellow CAMs. I will go over how to obtain credit at the end so we don't take up any more of Billy's time. But it is my pleasure to introduce Billy Genovese with VerdeGo Landscape, creating sustainable, beautiful communities through strategic landscape management. Today's session is led by a professional who understands that great landscaping is about more than appearance. It's about protecting property values, enhancing community appeal, and creating long-term success for associations. Billy serves as the Director of Business Development for VerdeGo, a Heartland company, and has been a valued member of the organization for more than 8 years already. Throughout his tenure, he has worked across VerdeGo's Palm Coast, Daytona Beach, and St. Augustine operations, helping commercial clients develop landscape strategies that thrive in Northeast Florida's unique environment. Specializing in commercial landscape maintenance and client relations, Billy works closely with property managers, board members, and ownership groups to identify practical, cost-effective solutions that balance aesthetics, sustainability, and operational efficiency. His hands-on approach and deep understanding of Florida landscape have made him a trusted resource for communities seeking to maximize the value of their landscape investments. With years of experience helping associations navigate landscaping challenges, seasonal planning, and long-term property enhancement, Billy brings a real-world experience and actionable insights to today's webinar's presentation. And without further ado, Billy Genovese of VerdeGo, welcome.
All right. Thank you, Diane. Every time you do that, I'm like, I have to start bringing you on the road with me. That is a way bigger
I'm for
entry
hire. I'm
than
for
I
hire. I'm
need,
for
but
hire.
I appreciate it.
Thanks.
And yeah, good afternoon, everyone. I'm happy to be back doing our second class now. So we're very fortunate to be a part of this. As you can kind of see from the top slide here, we're going to be talking about emergency versus planned work. Um, Again, a lot of examples, will come from me, will be on the landscaping side because that's where we come. But I tried to build this presentation to incorporate kind of everything. So, because we know emergencies happen all over the place on on your properties. So, um, you know, you can go to any vendor relationship, whether it's, landscaping, roofing, plumbing, gates, drainage, elevators, lighting, emergencies happen everywhere. So we're going to try to touch on all of that. Okay. Here we go. So, big idea today, is emergency work, is sometimes unavoidable. The storms hit, pipes burst, trees falls. But the reality is, some of the emergency decision making is often entirely preventable. So, we're able to put plans in place, to cover the budgets, cover the money, and just make sure that you are set up to make the best decisions for your communities. So the goal is that there's not going to be zero emergencies. The goal is to have fewer avoidable emergencies and a repeatable playbook for handling the real ones. So we're going to talk about planning preserve options, options to preserve the budget, and so forth. So I put a little real world sample together for you here, just to kind of show the difference. And I nicknamed him George as I was going through my thing here, but we've got George in that hot Florida heat, end of July, beginning of August. It's 100 degrees out. He's had this old AC unit for years, has done no planning, nothing behind it. And what happens? It breaks down. We're in a flop sweat. We need that AC fixed immediately. And then, of course, you see your AC guy in the background. In this situation, we're not really wasting time, right? We need someone out immediately. We need to get that fixed. So you're calling the first person that can come out, and they kind of know that at that point. So, you're not really getting any deals on, lowering the cost. They're going to come out and they get that pocket full of cash to make sure because they know that they're the ones out there. So there's probably not competition. You have no time, you have no choice. So you end up paying more. Um, Now you go to our girl who I nicknamed Sally for some reason, not sure, but Sally knew she had an older AC unit. 2 years ago, she's like, this thing's not going to last very long. So she started putting a plan together. She started putting money away each month, was ready to go. Summertime, we get started, about May. She starts calling around, finding vendors. She's able to come out, kind of put them against each other, able to negotiate costs, hopefully get some discounts. She's got cash in hand, and it works out in her favor. So, those are kind of just a small real world little sample there of what it's like, waiting on an emergency and being able to plan for that emergency. So, number five, what counts as an emergency? Not every urgent feeling situation is a true emergency. Sometimes we can misclassify, work that leads to overspending, vendor dependency, and reactive budgets. So, emergency is going to be something that has that immediate safety risk. Are people in danger right now? Are we walking over limbs? Do we have exposed wires? Unstable structures. Is the access blocked? Can emergency vehicles not come in? Is your gate stuck? All those kind of things with the road being blocked, and then active property damage. So is this happening in real time? Do we have a mainline break that's flooding around your amenity center? Is, your roof leaking inside of, condo units or, sewage backup? Probably one of the worst. I don't think any of us want to have that. And then, of course, it's the utility structure and threat. So it can be security failures, anything, to deal with structural issues there. So we kind of break this down into having four categories of work. Um, and the little saying we put up there is emergency is a condition, not a feeling. Sometimes, especially dealing with homeowners, their feelings get involved and they feel that things are much more of an emergency than they actually are. So it's important to kind of work inside of these four categories. To start an emergency, that's an immediate threat to life safety, access, major property damage, habitability, and community operations. So, a landscape example regarding that would be a large limb is blocking the entry lane. We have that irrigation main break, flooding everything, or even, an unstable storm that's, or an unstable tree that's after a storm that could fall over and hurt someone. Some other vendors, again, would be active roof leak, sewage backup, gate stuck open. So that's what we kind of consider an emergency. Something that is urgent. This needs prompt action because it may become an emergency later, but it can still be triaged and scheduled. Landscape example would be a leaning limb over a parking area. So it's not that it's going to fall immediately, but there is a point in the next month or so that it could fall and hit a car. One of the urgent things is a drainage inlet. A lot of times we see this, especially in Florida, that it's clogged and no one's cleaning that out. So you get heavy rains, which leads to flooding. Or you have irrigation zone failed in a high visibility area. It's killing off, some of the grass or some of the things. You got to be able to put that into a plan of action to be taken care of. And some other vendors would just be like a malfunctioning access system, your elevator's intermittent, faulting. You've got roof areas that are showing signs of leaks, but aren't quite there yet. That's kind of urgent to get taken care of. The next category is planned and preventive. So these are things that are known. You're able to put a scope together. We're able to schedule it. It's budgeted work intended to preserve the assets and avoid preventable failures. So again, landscaping side of it, this would be working with your vendors to schedule the seasonal pruning, making sure that you're getting the monthly and annual irrigation audits, working to make sure your mulch is getting refreshed. You're checking your tree risk assessment, and again, on a monthly basis, doing that drainage clean out during their services. Other vendor stuff for the plan would be, having roof inspections done, having the fire system tested. We could do that, obviously monthly elevator maintenance, your HVAC services, and even pressure washing of your sidewalks to make sure that, there's no mold that's around and somebody could slip on when it does get wet. So those are things that you can plan and make sure they're preventable. And then the last one is the deferred. Um, this is known as work that has been postponed beyond the ideal maintenance window and useful life. Landscape example would be dead trees left in place. We see this a lot where trees have died, they're just standing there. Our philosophy is I'd rather see a dead plant removed and have blank space than just having dead there. Trees are probably the worst to have because any small, quick thunderstorm here in Florida can knock those over and cause damage. You also want to make sure that irrigation repairs aren't being repeatedly postponed. Again, that causes a lot of issues, especially for the turf and the aesthetic of the communities. And then, not trimming your palm trees before the storm season. That's one of the things that a lot of people, put off to the next year, and then you've got stuff flying around during storms. And other examples would be aging roof repairs that you just delayed, and then it causes a problem. Drainage repairs are postponed. You have paint or sealant that's deferred too long and then becomes a problem. So those are the four categories that we will work through. So, obviously a lot of examples are from the landscaping side of it. That's easy because it's visible. But a lot of the stuff you see on the screen right there, you don't want to forget about the items that aren't easy to see, like your roof damage, your pipes in the clubhouse, etc. So you just want to make sure that you're doing a broad view of the total, property that you have so that you're not missing anything and can make sure that you're planning for it. So number eight, why waiting costs more? We all know this. If it's an emergency, but it could be something that was planned out. You are going to spend more. It doesn't matter what industry it's in. People are going to have those after hour costs. It says up there, emergency spending isn't just about the direct invoice. The true cost includes every upstream and downstream consequence that planned work would have been avoided. So that's, complaints from your homeowners, all the things that can come back to you. It's not just the money that's coming out, it's the headaches that it causes as well. And reports show that communities that track the emergency spending are often, spending 30 to 60% more on the same services that could have been done earlier if you were able to put a scope to it and take care of it in a timely manner. So, um, five things we have up there that are gonna, go to that costing is gonna be the after hours labor and mobilization. Anytime you have to bring somebody out that's off hours, people are gonna have overtime rates. You're gonna have the after hours calls fees, having to bring in specialized equipment because of the emergency. So that's one of the main components of it. Two is that you're not really able to get competitive bidding. When things fall, tree limb is blocking the gate at 6 a.m. You're going to call whoever answers, not whoever is the most competitive. So that's definitely going to increase your cost there. Materials and equipment. This right here, again, the thing that I supply the most is when we think of hurricanes that come through and we see the trucks that load up and take off. That is definitely one because they know they're going to get top dollar. So again, it's the materials and then equipment and the scarcity of having it there. We also have to watch out for secondary damage. So it may not be the cost right then and there, but you could have water that was sitting creates wood that rots, mold that spreads. So some of these emergencies can happen if they're not taken care of immediately. It can actually lead to second damage where you're bringing people back out and it's costing you more as you keep going. And then the last one is rush scope and quality risk. When people are working in an emergency, it's very rarely the vendor's best work. Other people are calling as well, so they're trying to get in, take care of the situation as quick as possible and get out of there. So a lot of times you see a reduce in the quality and then it increases the chance of it having to be reworked and again costing you more. So we put together a little kind of operational chain of reaction. This is, something that we feel are the steps that go through it. So emergency hits, a community without a defined process will improvise. Improvised responses are slower, more expensive, and harder to document. So map your process now before the call comes in, so your team executes rather than guesses. So that's kind of the way it takes off. So the first step in this chain reaction is going to be the intake. This is where the emergency officially enters the system. The quality of the intake determines how clean or chaotic the rest of the process becomes. So key points on that is, do you know who's going to receive the request? Was this a true emergency or just urgent? This one I kind of have pulled aside because we get this a lot. I homeowners don't really necessarily know this, especially on the irrigation side. But we get a ton of calls where you just have a broken head and there's a geyser going off during the normal, routine of the maintenance. Homeowners are going to call and think that that's this massive emergency and that we're in trouble, when in reality, that zone is probably going off in the next 15 minutes. It won't be running again, so water won't be coming out of it. And we're able to come out, the next day and replace that head. So you're not getting hit with emergency charges or extra trip fees. it's an easy switch. So sometimes that gets done as an emergency compared to if you have a full mainline break and it's a true emergency where water's just going to keep gushing until we're out there to shut it off. So make sure you're, evaluating if it is a true emergency or if it's just something that's urgent. Um, then you want to make sure the issue's captured clearly the first time. Make sure that you're taking photos. You point out the location specifically. If residents turned it in, make sure you have the right details. And then depending on the type of emergency, make sure people have the correct access instructions. A bad intake creates rework before the work even starts. So make sure that first step is ready to go with your team. Um, Next, we move into triage. Triage is where you separate the noise from the true risk. Not every hot call, leak, outage, or damage report carries the same operational priority. So there, you're going to have to determine, is there a life safety risk involved? Is there a property damage risk? Is there resident displacement risk? Is this affecting one home, multiple homes? Is it in your common areas? And then can it wait or does it need immediate response? Triage protects your team from treating every request like it's a five-alarm fire. So this is that process where you decide whether it's true emergency or if it's just urgent. Next step is going to be working towards the authority side. So once the issue is identified, someone has to have the authority to approve action. In emergencies, delays often happen because the field team is waiting for permission. So you got to make sure whoever has the authority is getting that intake and it's gone through triage and a decision can be made immediately. So the things you would want to know and your key points is who can approve the work? What is your spending threshold for certain jobs? Does the vendor need a not to exceed amount so they can go and take care of whatever's out there? Is there a pre-approved emergency protocol? And then are managers clear on when they can act without escalation? And that's probably one of the main ones is to make sure your team and your managers all know in certain situations if they can go ahead and just approve invoices and work to be done, or if it does have to go up the line and have someone else approve it. So our little tagline: if the person closest to the problem has no authority, the emergency gets more expensive by the minute. So make sure you have the right people in place, and that will help you save time and money. So the next one's going to be your vendor dispatch. Dispatch is where the plan becomes action. The right vendor with the right scope at the right time makes all the difference. The key points for this when you're working with your team is, are you calling the vendor that's qualified for that type of emergency? So you want to make sure that they can take care of it. Are they available now, or do you need to call someone else? Do they understand the scope? You've given them clear instructions. Do they have access instructions so they know exactly where they're going and how to get there? And once they are there, you also want to make sure that your vendor is documenting the arrival, what findings that they have, and then especially the completion so you can get that off to your homeowners and residents in the neighborhood. So, tagline for this one: in emergency work, speed matters, but sending the wrong person fast is still a failure. So make sure you have the right people going in the right area. Last one, and probably what I consider the most important, would be that resident communication for you, because this will take away from, a lot of headaches and people constantly calling. So, resident communication, this is often where the customer experience is won or lost. Residents may tolerate a problem better if they are feeling informed. So, key points to that: if it was a resident that turned in the problem, has your resident been informed or acknowledged? If it's a community-wide situation, have you sent out that email or that mass communication to your residents so they know? Have you communicated what is happening next, where that plan is going, who is going to be taking care of the issues? Do you have an estimated response window? Can you give them that time frame of when things are going to be taken care of? Then you have to decide if the expectations are realistic. You don't want to be putting anything out there that actually can't be done because that will just lead to more calls, more resident confusion, and then them putting the blame, back on you. And then last one is, are updates being sent before they have to ask? And this is honestly something when I'm meeting with our operations teams and we have our weekly meetings that I probably touch on at least twice a month, every month. And I know they're tired of hearing from me, but especially when we're dealing, with your, managers who are our customers, if our crews are not being proactive and giving you information that you can relay back to your residents, I tell them that's the number one place that they're going to fail. It doesn't have to be the best news, but you have not having the information and not being able to get that to residents is a big fail on a vendor's part. So it kind of goes the same way when you're dealing with your residents. If you're not staying a step ahead of them and keeping, then they're not going to feel seen and validated. So our tagline for this one says, "Silence makes emergencies feel worse. Communication is part of the repair." So make sure you're staying up front, make sure you're communicating with your residents, and it should hopefully make an emergency experience seem a little easier. Next, resident trust and the hidden cost. So this is one you can kind of, see here. All obviously everyone in Florida, we accept storms. Storms happen. We know we're in that time of the year. Um, but the silence creates the confusion or perception that management doesn't have a plan. So as longer you go without the updates, it's there. So again, early communication lowers complaints. Clear priorities, reduce favoritism claims. Residents will complain about a lot of things and think that theirs is the most important. So if you have the everything in place, you can, avoid somebody saying that you fix this because you favor that person. And then one of the things I have written in there is it's in the green, the communities with pre-written communication templates respond 3 times faster after events and receive significantly fewer formal complaints. And one of the things that I suggest on here, if you are not using it, would be to get on ChatGPT and create, several templates that you can just spit right out. I've become I think my family thinks I have a better relationship with ChatGPT than I do with them. Because I'm always on it, but it's amazing. You can just hit that, microphone button and talk to it and just say, hey, I'm a manager of a 450 unit HOA, help me build 3 templates in a time of an emergency, blah, blah, blah. And then you've got them ready to go. And it's, as far as I know for myself, it's way better than anything that I can ever come up with. So I definitely use Chat GPT for things like that. So again, obviously, I know all of you, your favorite time of the year is dealing with budget season, but this is where it becomes the most important and sets you up for success down the roads. So we have the 4 different types. Obviously, you have your operating budget. This is where that money is for the predictable maintenance, mowing, pest control, pool service. It should be there. What you want to avoid is, tapping into that operating budget for any kind of major capital replacements because it wasn't planned for before and now you're scrambling. Reserve fund, that's your long-term repair and replacement of common area components, roofs, pavement, elevators, pool equipment. We all know about the reserve stuff. We'll talk about that in a little bit as well. Make sure you have that right contingency budget. Again, this is for that major storm cleanup. You're reviewing things from years past. You can kind of go look back, figure out how much money you spent, and make sure it's in there. So when you do have that emergency or repairs, you've got the money. And then obviously, um, all of us know insurance because of how expensive it's gotten lately for you guys. So just make sure we have the right coverage, and then that way you're not having to tap into anything else if it's not covered. So the reserve planning, um, I know it's a part of everyone's lives, and you've got to make sure that it's done correctly and you go, but this is definitely a way for you to get ahead of emergencies and save money. So, it's that way to predict future costs. They reveal the true age and condition of your community structure. So if for some reason you haven't been doing it, I suggest to make sure you've got that reserve planning in place. It identifies the future needs, has preventative maintenance, protects the assumptions. When you maintain assets properly, they reach their projected lifespan. So it definitely helps you. And then deferred work escalates in this category. Work that should have been planned ends up becoming urgent. Urgent work then becomes the emergency. Each escalation carries a cost premium and documentation that goes with it. So, um, all right. So vendor readiness, before the call. So one of my suggestions is putting a playbook together. And this is something that you can have, in your office in case you're not available. Someone else can go right to this playbook, and then they'll know how to take care of an emergency or something that goes. So part of your playbook, you want to build a vendor bench. So I know you're going to have your primary vendors that are there, your landscapers, your roofers. You're going to have all of their information there, but then you also want to have backups. So don't make someone, especially, I mean, it can be for you or it could be for someone else, but you don't want to be in that situation where your primary vendor for some reason can't handle your situation, and then now you're scrambling looking for information, looking for who to call. So in that playbook, have your primary, have several backups so you can just immediately go to that information and start making phone calls. That's going to be your specialty vendors for landscaping, trees, irrigation, drainage, roofing, plumbing, anything you can think of. Make sure you have multiple vendors and that information in the playbook. You're going to want to make sure that, and this is probably more with your primary vendor, but you're going to want to have pre-negotiated emergency, response information, right? The expectations. What are the after-hour contacts? What's the response window? The mobilization charges, debris rates, equipment needs, payment terms. You want to try to get all of this lined up so when you do have that emergency, you're not going to have any surprises, and it helps you do that planning part so you can make sure that that budget is correct. Third, you want to make sure you're doing pre-season inspections. So this is going to be your trees, drainage, irrigation, roofing, lighting, access points, generator areas. You're going to be checking retention ponds to make sure they have the right, drainage part of it. And then your common elements. I suggest, again, going on to ChatGPT, create yourself a little checklist. And this is the perfect time to be making sure you're going through that and that you fit everything on the checklist, and it just makes you look really professional. Um, and then use the communication templates. So have them in there, and then that way you can just pull them out. You want to have, my suggestion is one for an initial alert. You're going to have one to talk about vendor dispatched, have one for a timely update. You're going to have resident safety instructions. So in case you do have a storm, you've got a template ready to go out. Talks to them about that, and then one for when work was completed, and then maybe even a post-event or follow-up. So have those templates ready to go so you're not looking. And then last, my suggestion is to make sure you document everything. Take your photos, have it time stamped, have your resident reports, in there, any vendor notes, approvals, invoices. just so that you're totally covered on your end for when things like that happen. My tagline for this one is a good vendor relationship is not just who answers the phone, it is whether both sides know the site, the priority, the rules, and the plan before the phone rings. So just something to have going on there. I did put together just a little seasonal kind of planning checklist here. Um, Not much to really go over. We kind of all know the seasons that are there. So, March and May, we're dealing with the pre-storm season. So that's when you're going to be doing your tree risk assessments, drainage inspections, irrigation audits. Make sure all your vendor contracts are up and renewed. And then any kind of resident emergency communication templates drafted up. When we get into the rainy season, one of the main things to monitor is any kind of erosion or runoff, especially around your ponds. And then confirm the availability that you have there. Budget season, August through October, we're kind of working. Probably even now too. I think we're a little into that as well. So make sure you have all your competitive bids ready to go. And then the post-event review is just ongoing. It's after any significant event. We're going back through, making sure that everything's organized, you have all of it documented, and you're ready to go. So here, this is, a little tough, doing it through Zoom, but I have a couple things here and there that just wanted to kind of bring to your attention, and maybe you can take it to your, local managers meetings when you guys are talking through stuff. But it's just a little mini scenario, 7 a.m. after a tropical storm, phone's always ringing. How do you go through this with your team? So, take the first one. You got a large
Oh, we lost you there. You froze up, I think.
e- everything's on
There
my
we
end.
are.
You still got
You're
me?
good now. Yep.
Okay. Well, as soon as you said that, a thing came up, said my internet connection's unstable. So hopefully it
You're good
sticks for a little
now.
bit. All
You're
right.
good now.
So did you lose me right at this mini scenario?
Yes.
Okay, so these are just a couple scenarios that I have in place for you guys to go through, maybe with your local managers. Again, talking about, a tree limb falls at 7 a.m. How are you handling that in the first 30 minutes? What are your three actions? Irrigation zone is stuck on. So this is one where it's not just a break with a geyser. This is a zone that's been running for hours and hours. How are you handling that? And then the last one, which is always probably your favorite, is, stuff coming from a board member, saying that they've received resident emails, landscape vendor hasn't responded yet, do you have a backup vendor, all that kind of stuff. So those are just a little scenarios for you to kind of walk through and see how you would handle it with your team. Next, we talk about just we break it down into the hours, right? So, what do you do during the first 30 minutes? What are you doing within the first 4 hours? And then what are you doing within 72 hours? And this is again part of that kind of playbook that you'll be putting together. So, make sure you're isolating the hazards in the first 30 minutes. We're shutting off irrigation mains. You're starting to take your pictures. You may have contacted your board president, but that's how you're going to work. Confirm which items are true emergencies versus urgent. Obtain any authorization for spending that you may have. Keep moving for the first 72 hours. You're kind of closing everything up. So you're hoping all the work is completed and it meets the scope. You've got all your signed work orders ready to go, and itemized invoices. So, again, having that in your playbook just helps you be a lot more efficient. So this slide is one I suggest kind of creating that 30-day action checklist for yourself. hurricane season's upon us. You want to make sure you're there and you have that checklist in order and that you've gone over these things. Um, this will also show your board that you're not only, their property manager, but you're a trusted advisor. So if you're going to them ahead of time saying, "Hey, I took care of this checklist. These are the emergencies that we think could have happened. This is what we've done to avoid them and make it more of a, you know, um, preventative or pre-active kind of work," then again, you're going to look um, just like that advice, like, oh my God, they're so on top of things. So um, with that, again, you want to make sure create and update the emergency vendor contact list with the primary and backup vendors by their trade. So it's going to be a pretty good list. Confirm all the after hours contacts with your vendors. A lot of times we got people that are moving companies doing things. So what you have in the system may not be updated to who is actually on call then, or it could be that they run a seasonal schedule. So someone could be the emergency contact for 2 weeks and someone switches. So you want to make sure you have all of that updated and ready to go. During this, you also are going to want to do property walks. So grab your landscape vendor, grab a roof vendor, come do your walk, make sure that you're set up before the next major season. You've identified all the high risk areas, the trees, the drainage, access points. So do those property walks, make sure you have it ready to go. Define the spend authority and escalation contacts. So again, this is setting up who can make the decision up to what amount of money, and then where do you go from there. And then last, again, I would say have that resident communication templates set there for you. Issue was received, vendor dispatched, work complete. What are the next steps? So have all of that. Um, Okay, so I do have, again, little challenge for you to take back to your teams, and it's just we're all going to have an incident that comes up, whether it's this week, next week, a month from now, whatever. But after your next incident, run through just a 10-minute after action review with the team. What happened? What worked? What failed? What should be planned for next time? And this will help you just update that playbook and make sure, again, you are on top of everything and ready to go. So I did throw up a little Q&A. Obviously, with so many of you on Zoom, it's hard to go back and forth. But again, I think these are just some things you can take to your next meetings. So once it's scenario, what is your most common emergency vendor call? So you guys kind of talk about that so you know what's going on. Where does your process get stuck? Is it in the authorization phase? Is it in vendor availability, resident communication? So kind of go through that, and then what can be planned before the next board cycle. So one piece of deferred work moves into a planned scope, competitive bids, board approval, and that's a measurable win when you can take something that was going to be deferred. Now you've got it planned, and then it doesn't turn into an emergency. Uh, right. Quick little reference recap here. You guys can kind of look through this, but just goes through those four different categories that we talked about. What's an emergency, what's considered urgent, what's planned and preventative, and then again, what is deferred. So those are your four main areas that you want to work with your team, and I think you guys will be ready to go for anything that's an emergency or planned.
I love
Diane, we're
it.
now into the course evaluation time.
Okay, do me a favor. Let's answer some questions first because we can
Yeah,
always speed through this, but I love to
awesome.
get the questions answered, and we're at 12:25 now. First question, preventative maintenance will help with cost if proper regular inspection and project managers are conducted correct.
Is that
Preventative
for
maintenance will help
yeah.
with cost if proper regular inspections and property managers are well, it says and P greater than PMS are conducted, correct? Dominic, if you want to send that question in a different way,
Yeah, I think
oh,
I
you got it?
understand. It's kind of
Okay.
a question and a comment, but I think he's just
Okay.
saying, if it's planned out and you're, communicating with everyone and you're putting a plan in place before the emergency, yes, it's going to save you money and it will save you time because you're not getting any of the, overtime charges for having to send someone out on a weekend. It can be scheduled and you'll get regular rates.
Okay. Thank you. Next question. Meant prevented. Yep, got it. For insurance purposes, having a list of pictures pre-storm with a public adjuster is a great option, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
I would say anything you can do to make sure that it, again was all, insurance companies are probably going to do their best to not pay claims. So
Right.
if you can show that a tree was healthy and in the ground and you've got pictures of it and that's the one that falls on the building, then yes, that will help you in that insurance battle and save you money from having to come out of pocket.
Okay, great. All right, let's go on with the evaluation.
Oh, awesome.
And everybody, you guys can put your answers into the chat and we'll move through this pretty fast.
Okay. So say that. Let me click in here. So first question, what is emergency landscaping work? Is it planned work, reactive work due to urgency, budgeting, or maintenance?
Okay,
Yeah.
answers are coming in, coming in, coming in, coming in. They're all
Seeing
coming
a
in.
lot of
Looking
B's.
like
Yeah.
a lot of
Got
bees.
a lot of smart people here.
Yes,
So
exactly.
yes, of course, it's anything reactive work due to urgency is going to be an emergency there. Uh, what is emergency? Why is emergency work more expensive?
Lots of, again, lots of bees.
I should have went through this last time. All my questions
All
were B
bees.
as well, so
I know.
I hope that's not the same this time.
It's okay if they
Yeah,
are.
too funny. Yep. So everyone's correct. It is because of urgency pricing, and unfortunately, sometimes people do that to because they know they can. So, what happens to vendor availability?
Mm, 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 mm. Oh, there we go. A lot of C's, some A's.
Well, it's the ones that chose C. So vendor availability, especially in an emergency situation, is going to lower because everybody's calling. So you want to make sure you've got the right people and you're making those calls first. What is a key risk of reactive decisions?
Okay. I think everyone's unanimous on C.
Wow, look at that. Yep, it is budget overruns. So we can run out of money. Question five is how does emergency work impact residents?
Mhm. Okay. Lots of D's coming in, some C's. So we've got a few questions on that one.
Right. So, emergency work, a lot of the impact is going to be that it reduces the trust if it's not handled correctly. So,
There you go.
what improves your negotiation power?
Mm-mm-mm. Seeing all
Looks
B's.
like everybody's all right. Yep, it's B. Planning
Everybody's all right.
definitely improves, like we learned from Sally in that initial thing, planning ahead definitely puts you in a better negotiation position. What is the benefit of planned work?
Mm,
Seeing it again. Yeah. Yep, definitely B. Better pricing is the answer for that with planned work. Eight, what helps avoid emergency work?
mm, Lots of bees,
That's it. We got a lot of smart people here. It's B,
always.
proactive planning. Um, nine, what is the CAM's role?
Lots of bees.
Yeah, I know a lot of us would just, maybe ignore
Like
the
to say
board, but
C.
avoid it. But
A.
yes, yep, it is B. So,
Nice.
your job is to guide the planning. And then our last one, what is a long-term benefit?
Got some C's, got some B's, mostly B's.
Yep, it is B. So.
Good.
So that goes through that. Diane, I do have just one quick slide since we got through that.
Yeah,
We kind of
sure.
talked about it earlier. Again, this is not part of my work, but I always like to think of myself as a trusted advisor. And since we are dealing in emergencies versus planning, I have a good friend of mine that has been in the concrete business for a long time. Has recently gone out on his own with this company called Trip Hazard. It's mainly in the North Florida area at the moment, so Northeast. But I know this is always something that can turn into an emergency if and again, it goes into that deferred. If we know you've got some sidewalks that are raised up or could be trip hazards, could end up costing you a lot, not only in the repairs, but on the insurance side with claims. So again, wanted to kind of pass that information along, as your trusted advisor. So you guys have information that can take care of any issues that you have. So Mike Wilson, let him know that you got the information from me, and he'll know exactly what's going on. And lastly, I say thank you. We appreciate being a part of all of these different types. So
Billy, thank you. We like that you bring others to connect cams because sometimes things come up and they just don't have the contacts. And so thank you for bringing in another person. If anyone has any questions before we let Billy go, please put them into the chat. I have a question in here to ask for the presentation. I will put that into the chat as we take all of the presentations and add them to our webpage for Beyond the Boardroom so that you can share the presentation with your board members and any other cams that you have in your office that may have missed. But certainly feel free to connect with Billy. I'm also going to put his contact information into the chat so that you can contact him directly. Billy, will you just go over the service areas that VerdeGo handles?
yeah, currently we are kind of northeast Florida, I would say. So we have three branches. One in St. Augustine. We can go all the way up to North Jacksonville. We have one down in Palm Coast, so we go all the way out west, close to kind of the Ocala area. And then we have a South Daytona branch where currently we're going out as west as far as kind of the land, Deltona. We go into the kind of Lake Mary-ish area into Orlando. That's about as far as we're comfortable going with drive time and being able to maintain the service we expect. And then we go as far south as, New Smyrna Beach, that area. One of our growth areas where we want to try to move into next is the kind of Vieira, Melbourne area. So we are, actively looking for any opportunities that are down that way that could help us, start a branch and keep moving in that direction.
I love it. Okay. If nobody has any further questions, well, let me also say you are a Heartland company, so there are a number of opportunities in the rest of the state of Florida. So if people are looking for new representation, they can contact you and you could possibly connect them with one of your partnering companies.
We do. Heartland currently, I mean, I have vendors throughout the country. There are currently we're the only operating company for Heartland in Florida.
Oh,
But
okay.
again, we are they are expanding as well. So if there, anyone that's a good company that's looking to sell off or be an acquisition, they can get in touch with me and I can get them in touch with Heartland. But
Oh, there
um,
you go.
yeah.
I like it. All right, I will let you go unless you have anything else to
Perfect.
add, and I'll go over credits with everybody here.